want to give you a quick little adjectives lecture. We'll do it from the class so you feel like we're still here. And so as you're doing your work, maybe this will clear up some things if you're having any trouble at all. The thing that you must memorize, and hope, if your parents are watching this with you, which might be a good idea, is the only way to do the adjectives unit is if you memorize these pink adjective questions. And Mr. Scott will maybe zoom in or out or whatever as he films this. But if you don't memorize these adjective questions, this will fall apart on day one. So that's the first thing to memorize. Every unit has had memorization. Some of you have taken that on and accepted that grammar is memory work, and some of you have hoped that whatever you learned last year would come back to you, and usually that hasn't worked. So do the memory work, just like this was a history class. The 5 adjective questions are: which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. And eventually you say it real fast. You stand around, walking around, doing whatever you're doing at home. Which one, what kind, how many, how much, whose. Those are the 5 questions. This is how they answer. A which one question is probably going to be a this, that, these, those. Those kids. Which kids? Those kids. So those is actually an adjective. What kind is the adjectives you like the most and you're most familiar with them. So what kind of kid? A silly kid. And you can see I draw an arrow from the adjective to the noun it modifies. I didn't say that, but hopefully you know now adjectives modify nouns and pronouns. So those modifies kids. Which kids? Those kids. Silly modifies kid. What kind of kid? Silly kid. We're on the 3rd adjective question. Again, you have to memorize these. Which one? What kind? How many? How many is an easy one to miss because for some reason, students don't want to accept that numbers can be adjectives. 7 kids, 24 kids, 180 days, 52 weeks in a year. All of those numbers modified nouns. And so if you memorize the adjective questions properly, or you did years ago, like in 4th or 5th grade, then this will be clear to you. You say, what's 7 doing there? Oh, it's saying how many. As soon as you say the question how many, you know you're in adjective world. So 7 kids. How much is a little bit harder, but once you see what the answer to the how much question is, it becomes very clear. Some kids were at the game. Few kids were at the game. Many kids were at the game. Now you see I'm not doing numbers. I'm actually doing pronouns that just became adjectives because there was a noun after it, right? Some, any, none, almost. That's from your pronoun list. But as soon as I put a noun after it, I take that pronoun and now I'm going to call it an adjective because that's what it's doing in this sentence. It's modifying a noun. So, and then the last question, whose, as an adjective question, my kid, your kid, Mr. Scott's kid. So Mr. Scott, who's normally a noun, just became an adjective because he's answering the question whose. So anyway, that's how the adjective questions work. Memorize them. Let's do some work. Knowing that I sometimes put test questions as examples on the board. Some of you take advantage of this and some of you don't. So if your parents are sitting there next to you, they're going to encourage you to take advantage of this. Were there grilled hamburgers and cold soda for everyone at Saturday's picnic? Well, questions are tricky, but don't overthink them. The thing about this is that once you get to adjectives and adverbs as parts of speech, if you don't label everything in the sentence as you've been taught, you're going to miss a bunch of adjectives. And that's why you make a 50 on a quiz. Because I get the quiz back, nothing's labeled, but you've tried your hardest to just find the adjective. I'm saying label everything, and then it doesn't matter what the test asks you. You can answer any question because you know what every single word here can be called. So we're not not going to start with where are the adjectives. We're going to start with the verb because that's where we always start. So were is the verb, and were is not helping anything. It's just a being verb. Now if I change this around and didn't make it a question, which is sometimes easier, it would say, there were grilled hamburgers and cold soda for everyone at Saturday's picnic. And sometimes that can help you not be confused about the subject. So if I did that, there were grilled hamburgers and cold soda, you would see that these are your two subjects. They're both nouns. Obviously, subjects are nouns. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get the prepositional phrases out of the way because maybe there'll be a question about that and I'll at least know where they are. Now let's do the words that we haven't labeled. There, we'll find out later, is going to be an adverb. It's going to say when or where. What is grilled doing there? It's answering what kind of hamburger, right? The grilled hamburger, the burnt hamburger, the raw hamburger, the gross hamburger, whatever. So there's my first adjective. What's cold doing there? It's saying what kind of soda. Draw an arrow to what it modifies. There's my second adjective. Here I just have a preposition and an object of the preposition and nothing modifying anything. So I can go on, right? At Saturday's picnic, there's my preposition. There's my object or the OP. What's Saturday's doing there? It's saying which picnic? Saturday's picnic. So there's my third adjective. But I've labeled everything, and so I'm confident that I got everything right in this sentence. The closed door was locked securely. Verb was, let's see, we're going to say locked. We'll go ahead and say that as a verb phrase, was locked. What was locked securely? The door, there's my subject. We got a little article, adjective there. And then now we've got two words we haven't labeled. What's securely doing there? Maybe you don't know, but it's really telling how locked the door was. And how is not an adjective question. So we can't call that an adjective. If you remember, you know ly is often an adverb, but you don't have to know that. It's just not an adjective question. What kind of door? The closed door. Or which door? The closed door. So I've got one adjective here, plus a little article adjective. Jim's team will be competing in the prestigious tournament. Verb, will be competing. Who or what will be competing? Team. Now when you go too fast, you call Jim the subject, but Jim is not competing, his team is. In the prestigious tournament is a prepositional phrase. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but let's see what I haven't labeled. Jim's, so this is a whose team, so there's an adjective answering whose. I got all that labeled. In is my preposition. Tournament is my noun, so there's my object of the preposition. There's a little article adjective, and I'm not sure if you read that in your notes. A, and the. We call them articles, but they are adjectives, and I usually just put checks over them because you don't want to have like 1,000 arrows. But what is prestigious or important? That's what that word means, prestigious doing there. It's saying what kind of tournament. Is it the dumb tournament? Is it the short tournament? It's the prestigious tournament. What kind of tournament? So I really just have one main adjective and a little article adjective. And that's how you must do this. Number one, memorize the questions and know what kind of answers might follow the questions. Number two, label everything. Now we're in March, and half of you are not labeling, but that's a choice. You do get to make that choice, but you've got to be pretty confident in your grammar. The last thing is I want you to be able to say if these words that I'm underlining are nouns, pronoun, or adjective, because they could be all three in different sentences. Remember, the sentence determines the part of speech. Again, all I'm going to do is label everything. So let's try it. some you've seen on the pronoun chart, right? Some, many, none, all, most. But I'm not sure if it's a pronoun here. So I'm going to start with my verb. Some students have decided to form a Spanish club. Verb, have decided. Who or what have decided. Students have decided. And to form a Spanish club is a little infinitive phrase. So what's some doing there? It's followed by a noun, and so it is not functioning as a straight up pronoun, it's functioning as an adjective. And if you wanted to label the rest of this stuff, you got a little article, what kind of club, a Spanish club, and then that's just your simple infinitive phrase. Okay, what's 25 doing here? Mr. and Mrs. Jackson have been married 25 years. Verb, have been, we're going to say married is a predicate adjective, I'm thinking. And who or what have been married? Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, subject. What's 25 doing there? Again, I'm trying to hammer it into your head that most numbers probably going to be followed by a noun, meaning I've got an adjective. How many years? What about his? Now, I've told you that, this could be, it's not going to be a noun, right? His is in the pronoun chart as a personal pronoun in the possessive case, right? My, yours, his, her, right? His is normally a pronoun. The only way a possessive pronoun becomes an adjective is if what? If a noun is after it. Let's see if a noun is after it. This painting is his. Verb, subject. There's a little which painting? This painting. But what's his doing there? Is there a noun after it? No. If there's no noun after this personal pronoun, it stays a pronoun. Do you see the difference between this and this, which does have a noun after it? And finally, what is some doing there? Up here we said it was an adjective because we had a noun following it. Let's see what it is here, but I don't want to just concentrate on some, I want to do the whole sentence. I indicated that I wanted some of the lasagna. I've actually got an independent clause and a dependent clause. So I'm going to have two subjects and two verbs, but we need to let that mess us up. I indicated, so there's my first subject and verb. And then that I wanted. Verb, wanted. Who wanted? I wanted what? Wanted is an action verb. I don't have a noun after it. I have a pronoun after it. And pronouns can do anything nouns can do. And if you just said action verb what? Wanted what? You have answered a direct object question. And a direct object can be a noun or a pronoun. Some is a pronoun, right? Some, any, none, all, most. Again, if you didn't memorize your pronoun chart, you fall apart in adjectives. You can still memorize stuff. And then I just want to label everything. But you can see that this some, which is functioning as a pronoun, a straight up pronoun, is different than this some, which is still a pronoun, but it's functioning as an adjective because of the noun after it. I don't know how long that was, but that was 1. What are the adjective questions and how do they get answered? 2. What do adjectives even do? They modify nouns and pronouns. Label everything to find your adjectives. And then you're going to be asked, are these italicized or underlined words acting as nouns, pronouns, and adjectives? And the only way you can answer that question is to know your adjective questions and to label everything in the sentence. That's it.